Chapter 2. Things Fall Apart. Blaze had taken the form of a jet plane and was being piloted by AJ towards the area where Swoops had sent out the distress signal. "Are you sure our friends can handle running Gabby's garage while we're gone?" AJ asked Blaze. "Don't worry, AJ," Blaze replied. "I'm sure they've got it covered." "Hey, look down there!" AJ pointed to the bottom of the mountain range they had reached. "It's Swoops! Down here, Blaze!" Watts called out from next to Swoops, waving. Blaze and AJ dove down and landed near their friends. As they did, Blaze turned back into a monster truck. "Boy, are we glad you found us!" Swoops exclaimed. Blaze and AJ were equally glad to have found Swoops and Watts. Other than some scratches on Swoops, neither had sustained any damage from going down in the blizzard, but it didn't take long to notice that something was wrong. "Where's Gabby?" AJ asked. "Gabby went off to find help after we crashed, but she still hasn't come back," Watts explained worriedly. "What if something bad happened to her?" "Then we'll rescue her," Blaze assured Watts before letting AJ climb back into his driver's seat. "AJ, give me some speed!" Swoops and Watts watched their friends take off, hoping they could bring Gabby back safe and sound. Meanwhile, Gabby was packing her backpack on the front porch of a house in the nearby town. The house belonged to a preteen boy named Richard and his father, who had found Gabby after she had wandered near their town looking for help. They were nice enough to take her into their care, but they didn't know that Swoops was a helicopter or that Watts was a monster truck. None of the town's citizens had any living vehicles, so Gabby knew they wouldn't believe her about them. Gabby was just about to head out to find them again when she saw Richard and his friend Marcus coming up the sidewalk. Gabby couldn't quite make out their conversation, and she didn't want to eavesdrop, but Richard looked very upset. "Man, Marcus, when my dad finds out I lost the watch, he is not going to be happy." "But you didn't lose the watch." Marcus walked in front of Richard and stopped him with his hands. "Scott has it." "Yeah, like I'm ever getting it back," Richard replied, walking past Marcus. "Well, you gotta try. I mean, the watch is important to you." Marcus's next suggestion made Richard stop in his tracks. "Maybe it's time you stand up to him." "Are you crazy?" Richard spun around and gestured with his arms. "He's big, he's strong, and he likes to inflict pain." You could sneak into his locker, or, take karate." Marcus proceeded to show off a few karate moves, but Richard wasn't having it. "Forget it, Marcus," he snapped. "I don't need any of your dumb suggestions." "Fine, well then, you figure it out." With that, Marcus turned and walked off. Richard regretfully watched him leave before turning and heading up to his front porch. Gabby stayed quiet, and Richard avoided acknowledging her, not knowing how much of his exchange with Marcus she had heard and not wanting to ask. He put his hand on the doorknob. "Richard, is that you?" Richard's father asked from inside the house. Richard didn't answer. Instead, he stepped away from the door, down the steps of the front porch, and ran down the street away from home. Gabby started to run after Richard when her wrist comm began to ring. She stopped to answer it. "Hello? Gabby, where are you?" AJ asked. "I'm in the town near the mountains, AJ. Can you tell me where you are?" "I'm in the park with Blaze." "Okay, stay there. I'm coming to find you." With that, Gabby hung up and headed out. Meanwhile, Richard entered the park through the archway. He was far from where Blaze and AJ were waiting and walked slowly along the path. Richard sighed. "What am I going to do?" Then he tripped over something and was perplexed when he got a good look at it. What? Train tracks? That's weird. There's no train in the park. Richard got up and followed the tracks right to a stopped train. He gasped. Okay, there is a train in the park. Richard took a few more steps and studied the components. There was a red caboose, a brown boxcar, a red boxcar, a black gondola car, and a rusty red, brown, and gray steam locomotive. What Richard didn't know was that the locomotive, Rusty, wasn't moving because he had fallen asleep. A cold wind sent dead leaves spiraling, and Richard began to shiver. He climbed up into the open door of the brown boxcar and pulled the door shut. The noise startled Rusty awake. "Oh boy, taking a nap on the job. What was I thinking?" Rusty sighed. "Maybe I shouldn't have taken that extra load." Rusty tooted his horn and started chugging back to dreamland, unaware that Richard was still inside his boxcar. Hey! Hey! Richard called out before falling onto his backside. Nearby, Gabby had found AJ and Blaze. Suddenly, they noticed Rusty nearby on tracks that mysteriously appeared in front of him and disappeared behind him. AJ turned on his visor view, which showed him Richard inside the boxcar. "We've got to get that boy out of there!" AJ cried. Blaze let Gabby climb into his passenger seat before taking off after the train. He pulled up next to the boxcar that Richard was inside. "Where are we going?" Richard asked, straining as he opened the boxcar door. Blaze, AJ, and Gabby went around behind the caboose and pulled up to the other side of the brown boxcar. It was then that they and Richard saw the biggest mountain in the range ahead of them and gasped. The train was speeding right towards it with no signs of slowing down. "Stop this thing!" Richard cried. "Jump, Richard!" Gabby shouted out to him. But before Richard could make a move, Rusty sped up. Richard flew backwards into the car and the door slid shut. Blaze looked ahead and saw a sky blue portal forming at the base of the mountain. "Hang on!" he called to AJ and Gabby before speeding up towards the gondola car. He jumped up, did a barrel flip, and landed in the gondola car just before Rusty made it through the portal. The portal led into a tunnel, which started caving in right behind them. AJ and Gabby ducked under Blaze's dashboard and covered their necks. "Huh? What's going on?" Rusty pulled up his rearview mirrors and looked into them to see the blue lightning and the falling rocks. Rusty didn't dare apply his brakes until he and the cars he was pulling were out of the tunnel, or whatever was left of it. He looked into his rearview mirror again. "Oh no, I better tell the tower!" As Rusty continued back towards the train yard, Blaze frowned in dismay at what he had seen in the mirror. AJ and Gabby sat up in Blaze's seats and looked behind them at the ruins of the tunnel, also feeling discouraged. How are they ever going to get back to their friends without the tunnel? Gabby's quest to find new mechanics, Blaze and AJ's rescue mission, their attempt to rescue Richard, all of it had gone completely off the rails.